So, yeah, I returned to BYU after my mission, was completing my Bachelor of Music degree, and started to come out of the closet. And I was fortunate that I met some really fantastic people at BYU. It was sort of like God put them in my lap. And pardon the pun, maybe that isn't the best pun or the best way of expressing, but it was like divinely inspired, I have to say. I mean, right when I started to question, all of a sudden there were people in my life, and it was right, and I didn't have any angst or anxiety or anguish or hesitation, guilt about talking to them and starting to explore that path. And they embraced me with open arms. And before I knew it, I was living in a house in South Provo with a bunch of roommates, all born and raised in the church, who were all SSA afflicted, same-sex afflicted, and struggling with their same-sex attraction. We ended up going to the clubs in Salt Lake a lot, going dancing a lot, goofing around a lot. We became great friends, and we're really a community within a community. When I say that, we're so fortunate. I'm a white male living in North America. I mean, how much more blessed and fortunate can you be? But I'm a gay male, so I'm a member of a minority. I'm a gay male within a Mormon sect, a Mormon faith, which is a minority amongst the general population. So I'm a minority within a minority. And here I am at a Mormon institution, one of a handful of out or acknowledged gay and lesbian, bi, transgendered, transsexual students. Whew, I was a minority of a minority of a minority. And if that didn't teach me a little bit about life and just who I really was and where I needed to go and why I wanted to go there and how to get there and how to ferociously fight for everything that I think is important, well, nothing could have or would have taught me any better. What I realized, though, watching a lot of these YouTube videos of other gay and lesbian Mormons who struggle to come to terms with their sexuality and their faith in the church, and I think back to the experiences of the friends, colleagues, the students that I saw, is just how much so many of them were tormented, literally tormented and torn apart. I was fortunate that I didn't have a family in the LDS church that was concerned or telling me that I was going to burn in hell or that I couldn't do this. I didn't have a lot of Mormon friends at the time because my experience within the Mormon culture was very, very limited. But for somebody who's raised in the Mormon church, whose entire life is 3 hours of church on Sunday, family home evenings every Monday night, mutual groups, elders groups, camping trips, every job you've ever had is through the Mormon community. I mean, your whole life, seminary before school, every day of the week, your whole life is encapsulated in this Mormon community. And so for you to all of a sudden embrace something else or start to think about something else or to consider a different lifestyle or a different path, you isolate yourself. And isolation is terrible because people who are isolated become often depressed, they suffer ill health. I can't tell you how many kids at BYU killed themselves because of things like this, because they felt that they were so alone, had no one to talk to, nobody would understand them, that they were damned, that they were abominable, that they were terrible, vile creatures. And it was difficult for many of my friends to accept themselves and to give themselves permission to at least explore this lifestyle, and whether they embraced it or not, whether they embraced all of it, part of it, how they embraced it, how fast or how slow, how they chose to deal with their family and their friends, who they chose to share with and not share with, what portions of their faith they decided to maintain or to completely abandon, whether they decided to find another faith base, whether they decided to become completely apostate from the church, whether they were excommunicated, all of those types of things. Really, it tears at your heart a little bit, because you're essentially taking a goldfish out of a tank of water and putting it on a bicycle and telling it to ride 10K. And how successful is a goldfish going to be doing something like that? I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but that's just how impossible it is for many gay and lesbian students, especially when you're in a Mormon setting where 99.8% of the people around you are devout, young, zealous, chaste, fanatical, right-winged, conservative believers of their faith. And that's not to say that they're wrong. That's just to say that that's their path. And so when you are different, it's like a trout or going to spawn, going upstream. You're going against the currents, and it's exhausting. And what happens? Those fish, eventually, they spawn and they die. And luckily, we don't spawn and die, but for a lot of Mormon youth, it's pretty damn close to that. You're going upstream. It's a never-ending battle, and there's no end in sight for many people. And I'm fortunate that I had a good group of friends that understood where I was coming from. Many of them were going through the same thing, and we were able to be a support for one for another. And we, by and large, all of us came out of the experience quite successfully and considerably stronger for it. And I guess that's another thing to be grateful for in the end.